is Warwick Rogers, and I was born in Hornsby in a house I live in with my wife Elaine of 57 years. Our family were all raised in Hornsby: Lynette, Robin, Bruce, Craig, Brett and Dana. As a sequel to my DVD Growing Up with Hornsby, I'd like to take you on a tour of old Hornsby as I remember it, and some of the photos were before my time, but very interesting. I am approaching 86 years now, so I must qualify that it's only as I recall the layout. Others may dispute my views. So put on your comfortable clothes and walking shoes, and don't forget your hat and water bottle. Okay, so welcome to Hornsby Shopping Centre tour down memory lane. Hornsby Shire was formed in 1908 and embraces an area of 510 square kilometres. The population at this time is approximately 170,000 people. Hornsby Council has retained its original council chambers, now heritage listed. However, a modern administrative building has been added. Hornsby Council Chambers is the headquarters for the Shire of Hornsby, the second largest local government area in the Sydney region. It is a major rail junction and is fast becoming a major retail outlet and a residential complex with a proposed increase in medium-density housing. Founded in the late 1800s and named after Samuel Horn, Hornsby was essentially a citrus and orchard area. Today we take you on a tour down memory lane, and our tour commences from the Hornsby railway station, built in 1886. The first train ran from Hornsby Junction to St Leonards in 1890, and then from Hornsby to St Leonards in 1893. When the Harbour Bridge opened in 1932, trains ran right through to Central. As we start our tour, we head south from the railway station and we walk through what used to be the village green. Many a fair was held in this area, and when fundraising was carried out for the construction of the Hornsby Hospital. At the southern end, near the overhead bridge, stood the cottage known as the Railway Institute. The village green area is now part of the bus interchange, completed in 1994. This interchange changed the shape of Hornsby with the introduction of traffic lights and one-way streets, and a modern bus and coach distribution system with a variety of interstate coaches, and has again changed with the completion of the additional rail line and Platform 5. The cenotaph was erected in 1918 to honour the fallen in World War I. Many names of our citizens who gave their life appear on the cenotaph and the honour roll. We now head across the Pacific Highway, recently changed back to Peach Ferry Road, for a look down William Street. But before we do, take a look south down High Street to where the Railway Administration Building stands today. Try to visualise the Pacific Cabaret rocking to the music of Les Black's dance band, and old-time dances and the scene of some very elegant, formal and debutante balls. The cabaret used to show pictures on Saturday night to capture the overflow from the Hornsby Theatre. Where the Hornsby RSL stands today was once cottages, and the original RSL was located behind the existing building in an ex-army weatherboard structure off the lane. Next to the RSL stands the War Memorial Hall, and then the lane. Between the lane and William Street was a motor garage, and then came Nicholson's motorcycle and cycle. I spent a lot of time and money in there trying to get my old first bike in working order. Right on the corner of William Street and Pacific Highway stood Hearn's Chemist Shop, now Forbes Footwear. Many old homes still exist in William Street, and the most famous is Mount Errington, which was built by the Mason family in 1897. Back up William Street to the Pacific Highway and we turn left and head north. The first building we come to is the Hornsby Theatre. You will not recognise the original old theatre, which was opened in 1929, hosting 2 or 3 sessions to a full houses on most days. You can pause here and imagine the mad rush at interval to get into the milk bar owned by Glover's and later owned by, for many years, by Con Anderson. It is now occupied by 40 Wings betting shop. With the introduction of the popularity of With the introduction of TV, the popularity of picture theatres declined and the building was split up into sections. Wander down a little further north and next door to the theatre was Nick Winter's fruit shop. Alongside Winter's was Macara's grocery. The Macara's family lived in a fine old two-storey house in Boomerang Street, Turramurra. My brother-in-law was the head gardener there, and I remember going there quite often as a lad. I can still picture the huge grandfather clock in the front entrance. Above Macara's was Sepp Moroni's dentist surgery. Ouch! I can still feel the pain of the old drill and the primitive tooth-pulling techniques based on today's standards. Next door was Hale's butcher shop. This shop was the scene of many long queues to collect your meat ration during the war years. This building is now a chemist shop. Across the lane was Duchar's hardware store. They lived in Bridge Road in Hornsby. Then came Brooks' jeweller shop. Many old-timers would recall the elderly gentleman sitting in the shop window with his eyeglass in place, working on intricate wind-up watches and clocks. His shop was right outside the bus shop, and he always had an audience. Hazel's fish shop was next, also an identity situated right outside the bus stop. The odour of hot chips on a cold winter's night while you waited for the bus almost grabbed you and took you inside. Many a time I weakened and went for a scoop of chips rolled in newspaper. K.E. Miller's solicitor was next door. I remember the building with the brown windows and gold lettering on the plate glass. The next shop was Melba Harvey's toys and clothing shop. Next, as the building still stands today, is the Bank of New South Wales. It is no longer a bank now and has had another story added over the years. Now let us cross over Jewell Street, but before we do, look down the car park. Two weatherboard cottages stood on the left-hand side. The first was occupied by the Edwards family, and Mr. Edwards was a familiar sight outside the railway hotel and the railway station with his hot dog stand. The second was owned by the Hobbs family, who had a fruit shop on the highway. It is too far to walk down to the old metal quarry. It doesn't operate today, but it had many tales to tell. It was a prime spot for the orchards and of course the scene of the burial place of early Hornsby settlers. It is interesting to note that the old cemetery is now attracting a lot of interest and is open for public inspections at different times. Okay, across Jewell Street and right on the corner of Yen's is Yen's fruit shop. They were a great Chinese family and operated a mixed business. I used to work there after school. This shop has now became became Malmax, the first of many familiar shops to appear in Hornsby over the years as $2 shops. Next door was a large block of land with a weatherboard building where Gregory's used to operate their hire car service. The old rural bank now occupies this site. Adjoining this site was Hornsby Advocate Office and printing works at the rear. The Advocate used to be printed on old linotype machines and it was taken over by Cumberland newspapers and is now printed at Chilora. The owner, Albert French, used to live in Milner Street, Hornsby. Next door was the Boomerang Cake Shop. I can still picture the blue lettering edged with gold on the window. My memory may have left me a little bit here. Boomerang may have been next to Yen's. Then came the Commercial Bank and then the National Bank and then the Bank of New South Wales adjoining the park. Here we see a photo of Hornsby's first bus driven by Len Blower. It was a wooden construction on a 1927 Chevrolet Chassis and it used to seat about 8 passengers. Behind the park, steps led down to Old Man Valley, and along the valley to the right behind the school was the suspension bridge that spanned the valley across to Marcus Clark's residence in Manor Road. This residence is now Mount Wilga Hospital. Before we cross the pedestrian crossing to the old police station, just look down to where the new swimming pool stands and imagine the old rotunda with the Salvation Army Band and other bands playing here on Sunday afternoons. It was a great way to spend a day in the sunshine. Further down was the School of Arts, which was burnt out in the bushfire in 1957. Right, let us cross to the old police station. Next door was the post office. This was once a little brick building with the postmaster's residence on the eastern side. The old post office was originally built in 1900. Across the lane is now council car park. However, this is where Judges Bakers stood, and Judges was well known for their deliveries by horse-drawn carts until they graduated to 3 motorised vehicles. The smell of fresh bread it was really great. The old horse knew exactly which house to stop at and would wander on ahead. Their slogan was, "Judge the baker by the bread." This then became Parsonage's Bakery. Next to the bakery was Manuel's Fish Shop. They did a roaring trade opposite the pub. Then came Webb's Shoe Store. Roy's Butcher Shop was next door. There was always an abundance of butcher shops in Hornsby, and they all did a good trade. Next came May's Chemist Shop. There were very few brand name remedies carried in the old chemist shops, and each prescription was made up individually by the chemist from raw ingredients. On the corner stood Creed's Roaster Shop. Now let us turn left into Jersey Street and past the lane, and the first building was Shaw's Glass. Then came Cyril Jago's estate agency. Next door was P.O. Jones' Timber Yard, which later was taken over by the Education Department for school buildings and has now become a TAFE college. The timber yard was destroyed by a bushfire in 1957. Located in this area was GE Lumby Sand and Cement, which then became Builders Supplies and moved over the 2 bridges to South Hornsby. Then came Marchant's Black Shop. What a pleasure it was to watch Alan and his father at their trade, making a horseshoe from a piece of flat metal, repairing broken mattocks, picks, etc. I spent a lot of time there after school when I took horses down from Wilkinson's Dairy to be reshod. Then came Somerville's Produce Store. The rich smell of the farm fodder and vegetables were the main memories I had of Somerville's. This area is now hardware in general. Let us pause here for a while and look across the road and a little to the north. It used to be pretty hard to see when the trees were growing because of the trees, but the brick building you can just see used to be the railway cruise dormitory where they would rest in between crewing steam trains. Now we cross over Jersey Street and head south. To the left, Hornsby marshalling yards have not changed much. However, the busy traffic of goods trains loading and unloading with the constant shunting is missing today. Operations of the steam engine shunting trucks backward and forward to make up the various trains has long disappeared. Hornsby railway station and goods yards were always out of a hive of activity with continuous movements of trains north and south. People always seem to be travelling with activity down the main line and shore lines, with a steady stream of goods trains heading and troop trains heading north during the war years. The mail trains used to leave from platform 4 with a great assortment of travellers with their ports and all spruced up in their good clobber heading Newcastle and beyond. In the morning, with the long distance arrivals coming in on platform 3, after sitting up all night, they were usually tired and a bit sooty. Hornsby Loco Yards was out of bound for us kids unsupervised, but it was an experience to climb up on the footplate of a 36 or 57 class locomotive. The Elite 38 class was out of bounds for not being housed at Hornsby. The old steam trains were exciting and almost sounded alive with them panting in the goods yard. I still recall the troop trains and the hospital trains painted white with the Red Cross passing through Hornsby during the war years. Being the only rail link north, there was always a lot of traffic passing through Hornsby heading north. Then there was the old turntable on George Street, where they used to turn the engines around. Today this forms part of the railway commuter car park. We'll take a seat and rest here a while and think about the modern trains we ride in. What a difference. Now we take a walk up along the new bus interchange in Station Street. We pass where the parcels office and administration offices used to be on platform 4, but is now located on the new platform 5. Now we continue along to the railway entrance, and it is hard to imagine 50 or 60 years ago what this area was like. Here stood McPhillamy's railway cottage, and adjacent to the pedestrian crossing to Station Street stood Amor's taxi rank, with direct phone to their shop at Asquith. But today the taxi rank still harbours a queue of patrons, many of them inebriated during the late evenings. Now we cross the pedestrian crossing and head north down Station Street. On the corner was Blackburn McNichol's estate agents with Brown's bootmakers underneath. Next door was McKellar's Milk Bar, and next door to that was Wright's haberdashery shop. Then came Enignap's Milk Bar, which became part of old Commonwealth Bank building. Woolworths was next door. Next to Woolworths was Langham's Tailors and Men's Shop, and then came Freddie Henwood's Barber Shop. The last shop before the lane was Harry King's Cycle and Sports Store. Many up-and-coming tennis players had their rackets restrung by Harry. He was always popular with the cyclist and the Hornsby Cycle Club. A lane runs alongside the cycle shop, which used to lead to McGrath's billiard room. It still services all the shops behind there today. Across the lane stands the Railway Hotel. As it still stands today, it was built in the 1800s and has changed licensees many times over the years. However, my memory only goes back to Bernie Richards. Around the corner is Coronation Street, and the first shop next to the hotel was Langham's Barber Shop, which was demolished later for extensions to the hotel. Next door to the barber shop was Nick Winter's Fruit Shop, which was also demolished for the hotel extensions. Next door to that was Thomas's Tailor and Mercer Shop. The next shop along was Frisbee's Newsagent, which is still a news agency but changed owners many times over the years. As a lad, I spent many an afternoon and Sunday morning in there collecting papers for my paper delivery run. Further along was Ellis's Shoe Shop. Then came Brown's Delicatessen Shop. This moved later to the Pacific Highway. It was a real treat to buy a pig's trotter in Brown's after school and gnaw on the bone. Just in this area before my time was one of the banks, and the story goes that the bank manager was murdered there one night. Alongside Brown's came Dobson's Radio and Electrical Store, which later moved over the line south to next to Lumby's. Then came S.R. Butler's Grocer Shop, which changed names many times. Next came Belcastro's Fruit Shop, and together with Newman's Shoe Repairs took up the corner to Pacific Highway. Next to Newman's on the highway was Col Gregor's Barber and Tobacconist Shop. Then came Newton's Pharmacy, another of the old traditional chemist shops. Next came Ensor's Haberdashery, and these two ladies had everything in this little shop. It was a favourite shop for the ladies, as most sewed in those days. Bristow's garden seeds and plants occupied the next shop, and he lived in Pretoria Parade, Hornsby, where he grew all his own plants for sale. Next door was Moore's Caker shop, and Moore's lived on the Pacific Highway near Mildred Avenue in Hornsby. Then came Hobbs' Aussie Fruit Shop. During the war, the term Aussie was supposed to draw more business, and some may remember seeing the Hobbs family out for their Sunday drive in their big yellow terraplane coupe, with the ladies with their scarves tied around their heads. Continuing our walk along, the next shop was Bruce Payne's Paint and Hardware. This shop had everything, and if he did not have it, he would guarantee to get it for you, and at a reasonable price too. Next door was Idle Jenkins' musical and electrical store, selling records and music sheets. I think Eaton's may have taken over later. Some may remember the Boomerang songbooks. You always had one in your pocket for a sing-song accompanied by a mouth organ at parties, etc. We move on now to Savage's butcher shop. Savage's had their slaughter yards out along Galston Road near the gorge. The next shop was Napoli's fruit shop, and now we pass Morgan Cato's, which is another of Hornsby's well-known grocery shops. Then came Ivor Martin's menswear shop. He later moved to Forbes Footwear Complex, and then came Hallam's Chemist. These shops became Woolworths. It was a great variety shop and supplied many items in the sixpence range. Next came Wright's Clothing and Haberdashery Store. Then came Ennignap's Milk Bar, and then Brown's Delicatessen. With the construction of Westfield Plaza, many small butchers, grocers, fruitiers and other shops closed down. The old shopping triangle was known as the Hornsby Main Shopping Area, but this title seems to have faded away. Before we leave this area, many oldies would remember Freddie Lockwood with his window cleaning business. Freddie used to work the triangle of business houses, and he always had the shop windows sparkling. Okay, so let's go over the railway overhead bridge, and have a bit of a rest here. Just imagine yourself standing here on a rickety old narrow bridge with wire sides coated with black soot from the steam trains. Imagine the rattle of the bridge as the Newcastle Flyer, pulled by 3801, sometimes sped through Hornsby without stopping. It is great to have memories, but we've had a little rest, so let's move on before we get dirty. On the corner of Florence and Hunter Street stood a two-storey building owned by Wright's Furniture Store, and sharing the corner was a chemist shop. It was from Wright's Furniture Shop that Vince Duffy started selling Victor lawnmowers, which then became the Commonwealth Bank. Let us head down George Street, and the next shop was Pop Sullivan's barber shop, and above this was the Oddfellows Lodge. I remember being inducted there, and the benefits derived from the membership were great. Next door was Parker's Produce Store, and they also had a store in Eastern Road, Turramurra. Next came Hensworth Saddler, and then Davies Nursery and Seed Shop. This block is now taken up by the Commonwealth Bank Office Block and the Hornsby Library. We will double back up George Street and head along to Florence Street and turn left. Florence Street was never a hive of activity in years gone by. However, alongside Wright's was Massey's shoe store and a few shops extended up the lane. Over the lane was Martingale's grocery shop, and then came Harris's Milk Bar with these frozen oranges which were beaut in the summer. Then came Archie Feeble's bootmakers and the exclusive butchery before Hunter Street. On the opposite corner was Tompkins's fruit and drink shop, and next door down Hunter Street was Smith's Wood Coal and Coke. Wonderful family where I spent a lot of time. In Hunter Street, it was located Nurse Tower's private hospital. Many of Hornsby's identities would have been brought into the world by Nurse Tower before the opening of the maternity hospital. Today the maternity hospital is housed in the emergency section of Hornsby Hospital. On the corner of Burdett and Hunter Street was located Purcell's grocery shop, which later became Eaton's. In addition, Dr. Holcomb, Dr. Vivian Hay, Dr. George Hay, Dr. Keith Ray and Dr. Laws practice in this area. Let's go back to George Street now, to where Pakenham House once stood. Of course, all this area is now taken up by Westfield Plaza. Let's move on up to Edgeworth David Avenue, which used to be called Junction Road. So we cross over and take a quick walk along the Pacific Highway towards Waitara. And just before we cross the railway bridge was the site of another butcher shop. As we cross over the bridge, just imagine what it was like with just 2 lanes timber bridge, and the Pacific Highway was made up of concrete slab sections which used to sink occasionally, and the council had to pump sand under the slabs to raise them. Over the railway bridge was Dobson's Radio, relocated from Coronation Street. Then came G.E. Lumby's hardware and store, relocated from Jersey Street. Alongside Lumby's was Olney's furniture store, and then a news agency. This has all been redeveloped with medium density residential units. Next for cottages, where the Shell service station stands today. Over Leonard Street, the 2-storey building on the corner used to house the Army wet canteen on the top floor. Then came a few cottages. Next door further was another of Hornsby's small mixed businesses. He was pretty mean. He used to charge you extra if you wanted a drink from the fridge. Now we cross over the highway to an old weatherboard cottage stood on the corner of Pretoria Parade. This was demolished for a nursery, then became another mixed business. Of course, all this area is now taken up to form Kennard's storage area. Next door was Hornsby's second fire station, built in 1928 to replace the original located at Waitara. The fire station was the site of many, many serious accidents, and probably the highest number on any one day was when the police were pursuing Dugan and Mears, who escaped from Long Bay Jail. On this day, 3 police cars overturned on the corner, which saw numerous police heading north. Hornsby Fire Station was destroyed by fire in January 1970 after a petrol tanker overturned on the corner. The tanker became involved in fire and burning petrol spread through the fire station, and the burning fuel ran north down the highway where it flowed under the railway line to emerge near the Pacific Cabaret. In addition to the fire station, the cottage next door, together with many shops and the Masonic Hall, were damaged by a fire. Hornsby's third fire station was built on the corner of Bridge Road and Pacific Highway in 1971, after operating out temporary premises in the George Street industrial area. Next door to the fire station was a cottage, then came a tile shop, and then the Masonic Hall. Olney's furniture repository was next. Then Threadwell's wine shop, Bob's hamburger shop, and then Butler's garage before Pound Road. Bob's hamburger shop was always probably the most popular shop in Hornsby, with his hamburgers always in demand after the pitches or the dances. Now we cross over the 2 railway bridges and back to where we started. Tired, but I hope you had an enjoyable journey with me, reliving some of the memories of old Hornsby as I remember.